Hello, welcome to another edition of Education Exchange. Tonight we have with us Craig Hansel, who is the Chief Financial Officer for the Iowa City Community School District. We're going to talk a little bit about everybody's favorite subject, finances, and find out what's going on for it'd be for the next school year, correct?
Yep.
So first of all, you just want to introduce yourself a little bit, tell us a little bit about you, how long you've been here, and so on and so forth.
Well, thank you for having me this evening.
Always a pleasure.
And I came to Iowa City Community School District about 2.5 years ago now, and it's been a remarkable journey since then. We've done some amazing things within the district as far as the revenue purpose statement. I think one of our first programs together was talking about that and the community's affirmation of that, and moving forward with the facility master plan and how all that's worked out and the tremendous growth that the district's seen in the number of students and how that facility master plan is trying to meet some of the space needs and things like that. So it's been just a very vibrant journey since I've been here. There's been a lot of things going on, a lot of things to deal with.
And as we were just talking about a minute ago, everything just seems to go so fast too.
It does.
When you say it's a year, 2 years, it's nothing. It just goes really
a blink
quickly.
of an eye, and you're down the road, and decisions have been made, and of course now we're dealing with some very substantive issues with opening up Alexander Elementary and all of the reconfiguration of attendance areas and things like that.
Everybody's favorite.
Yeah, the terribly popular topics that we seem to get ourselves into. But finances are one of those things too. So
yeah. Well, we're going to be talking tonight about the 2016 budget, correct?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And now, one of the first things on the agenda was talking about. So we just gone through some budget reductions and things, and how are we doing on that? And have we been able to make the adjustments to make everything work well?
Yeah, this last year at this time, we were faced with some pretty significant challenges. We had what I call a structural deficit of about $3.6 million last year, and we had to balance that out. And so there were a lot of very difficult decisions that we were faced with. And, as we went through the spring and we did a lot of community education and a lot of education with our staff as to why we found ourselves in this position, basically two things surfaced. And one of the reasons for the structural deficit was that we were trying to really be sensitive to class size, and we had a class size initiative, and we were putting on more teachers so that we could lower those class sizes, especially in the lower elementary, and that's always a good thing.
But conflicts.
But it takes money to do that. And at the same time as that, we lost a significant amount of money in the way of federal grants when the stimulus dollars came in 10, 11, and 12, and we were using those dollars. We had hired quite a few staff members at that point in time, and with our explosive growth in the student population, it was very difficult for us to downsize that. And so we were faced with some really difficult structural deficit issues, and so we dealt with those. It was painful, Mike. We had to get into programming for students like foreign language, the German program. We got into performance music and guidance, and executive administration took a pay freeze. We reduced some hours of our hourly staff. We squeezed overtime. We just pinched our budget all across the board.
And there's no easy route, because no matter maybe some elementary music. Well, there's all those elementary music parents that are, or
Absolutely.
No matter where it's at, every program is good.
It is good, and every one of those parents have a right to be proud of those programs and feel that they're valuable for their children, and we feel they're valuable, or we wouldn't have had them in place to begin with, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so these weren't easy decisions to make.
They never are, no.
But we stayed the course. We were able to reduce our budget, And I'm here to say that we've been very successful in that. And this year is shaping up to be, it'll end much differently than the previous year.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Well, and like you were saying, a lot of those where there's grant money or something involved to get initiatives going and started,
Right.
it's not just school districts. I know when the police force, they got some extra money, and when it runs out after 2 or 3 years typically, then, well, now you've got to find money. You hired 3 or 4 more.
do.
You've got to find money to, and the school district, same thing happens. I mean,
You do, and you kind of get used to having those services in place, and
Yep.
these are good things for kids.
Yeah.
And especially since we were hiring, really, a teaching staff with these dollars, and with our growth, it's just hard to rearrange those things and find that money back again.
yeah, and like you're saying, it's there's great arguments for every one of them,
There
for
are.
everything, but it all comes down to
Available dollars.
Yeah, there's only so much funding, and they're not giving us any more. So
That's right. That's
yeah,
right.
Yeah, that is. It's always a tough decision. I know it's bandied around a lot, and I'd hate to be making the decisions. I
Right.
tell you that.
Yeah. Well, I really feel good, even though we, there were areas that, like 7th grade football and things like that, and the performance music and so forth that were really impacted quite a bit. I really do feel like overall we came together as a school community, and we were able to really make this happen. And I'm just so proud of our educational system. We turn out a fabulous product. Of course, we're sent a great product
Yes.
by our parents, and our job is not to mess them up too bad while we have them,
That's
which I don't
right,
think
yeah.
we do, because if you look at our scores and the way our kids perform, it's just outstanding.
Oh, yes,
So,
always.
people are stepping up and filling the holes, and we're doing the job, and, we'd have to tighten the belt a little bit, but that's the way it goes.
Yeah, as well as everybody does. We have the enviable problem of a growing district,
We do.
which most districts in the state do not. But it is a problem.
It is.
Still, I mean,
There's challenges that go
Yeah.
with growth, aren't there?
yes, yeah. And but it's again, it's better than the shrinking population that most districts have.
That's so true.
Now, the next thing is the governor has, in the last few weeks or so, when they
This
talk
month.
about allowable growth, which you might explain a little bit what that means, because a lot of people don't. But he had recommended 1.25 and 2.45 for the next 2 years. Can you kind of explain what that means? Help people understand. That doesn't sound like much.
Yeah.
And in essence, it's. But when you look at the overall budget, it's a chunk of money, but
It is.
not probably enough money.
It is. There's a lot of numbers that come out of Des Moines this time of year.
Yeah.
And our legislators are dealing with this, and the governor presented his proposal, and then after that's done, the legislators have 30 days in which to act on that according to the code and things like that. And so we're right in that crunch period where you're getting a lot of information from Des Moines. And let me just put this 1.25 into maybe more of a understandable context, what that is. This whole business of supplemental state aid or allowable growth, whatever anybody
Whatever they
wants
call
to
it,
call it,
yeah.
we rename it every so often to keep
Yeah.
people on their toes. But really what that's talking about is how much each child brings with them every school year for that they kind of hand to us and say, here, use this money to educate me.
Yeah.
And I kind of liken it to a credit card limit. And right now for the Iowa City Community School District, every child brings $6,383. That's this year's amount.
That's per student.
Per student.
And that's the average. I mean, because there are some differences to that with. Although that's getting into a whole different form.
Well, no, you're right. There are differences for weighted students,
Yeah.
such as for our special needs students and
Yeah.
so forth, and there's money on top of that. But when we talk about just regular education, every child brings with them this amount of money.
That's
Even
6,000
our
or so.
special needs students bring this amount,
Yep.
and then a little bit more is on top of that
For
for the special needs portion. So, but so when you hear this 1.25 from Des Moines, really what they're talking about is that number, that $6,383, and how much the legislators are going to allow school districts like Iowa City, how much that amount per pupil is going to go up for
next
the
year.
next budget year.
Yeah.
And that 1.25 actually translates into $80. So if you add the $80 onto the 63.83, you get 64, 60 something.
63 or something like
Yeah,
that.
63, yeah. And so that's the amount that every child would bring next year if that's passed into law and we
But
get
that's
that,
still
get
not
that amount.
decided yet.
But that has to be decided
Yeah.
yet. That was just the governor's proposal, and
Yep.
then the House actually reinforced those two numbers for the two-year budgeting cycle, but the Senate has yet to bring in their proposal. And so we're still waiting,
Yeah.
and that's just a big unknown right now.
And the waiting game, especially now. Do I recall correctly that last year they didn't get the funding? Or they're supposed to do it a year in advance.
They are.
But last year they did not, which
They didn't.
makes your job even more difficult.
You know, it really is because
You have to plan ahead.
Yeah, it would be really nice to be able to plan ahead, but since I don't know how much every child is bringing with them, it's like budgeting in the dark.
Yeah.
It honestly is. So we have to go through so many scenarios. Well, if it ends up to be this number, we can do this, and if it's this number, we can do this, and but it has so many implications for the type and amount of programming you can deliver to students based on the revenue that you receive.
Yeah, because I would assume that you just start with, well, we're getting nothing new, and that's the base, but you know that's not realistic,
Right.
although it has happened.
It has. In 2012, they
Yes,
gave us zero.
they gave zero, and so it has happened, but
Yeah.
hopefully and realistically it's not that. And so you got to think, well, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 6, 10, shoot for the moon.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that would just, I would think that would just make it so difficult, and I just could not believe
Yeah.
that they just did nothing on that last year.
Well, it's actually the law that they do,
I know,
and
but there's no consequences if they don't.
that was going to be my point.
Yeah.
I guess they just felt free to go ahead and ignore that piece of the code and not provide us with that look ahead on the funding, and it makes it just so hard for us to plan. It's just another one of those things that makes our job just that much more difficult. You know, it'd be really nice to know a year in advance so that we could be putting these pieces together in a more reasonable, thought out manner, communicate them to the community, be able to decide on the scope and the breadth of our programming and things.
And
like
no
that.
last minute scrambling,
Exactly.
which is going to end up, what's going to happen is things are going to change at the last minute, and it's going to be really difficult for everybody involved. Maybe you can hire some more teachers. Well, then you've got to find them.
That's right.
You know, and it's
Everything crunches into a last minute type of thing
Yeah.
when you have this going on.
Yeah.
And it's just not good policy, honestly.
no. They should put some bite in that and say, you know, if you don't decide it, next year we give them a 25% increase.
Oh, that'd be swell.
Oh, you know, because you know they're never going to let that happen.
No.
And so then they, all right, now we've got to get this decided. But I guess they don't. Nobody's elected me, so.
Yeah, no, but I like that methodology you just presented. That
Yeah.
sounds great.
Well, okay. Well, talking about the funding, how does it compare to schools in the states around us and things?
Yeah, that's not all positive either. And I've been at this for 30 years now in this business, and in the last 44 years of that, with this allowable growth number, this 1.25% that the governor's proposed is there's only been 2 times when allowable growth in those 44 years has been lower than that number. That just kind of tells you where we're at. We're just the basement. We're at the bottom here on the whole funding spectrum from this budget proposal.
Yep.
Okay, and Iowa has slipped as well. and it's really discouraging. Iowa is now ranked 35 among the 50 states in level of funding for its K-12 system. So if we wanted to be average, okay, everybody strives to be average, right? I'm just kidding.
Yes. Yeah.
But let's say we wanted to be 25th in the nation, it would require us to spend an additional $1,600 on in addition to that 6,000, that 6,383 number. We would add another $1,600 onto that number just to bring us up to the average across the nation.
That's a chunk.
Well, if you calculate that out for Iowa City schools, you're looking in the $20 million range, Mike. Can you imagine what we could do with $20 million? How many teachers we could hire, and how many class sizes we could affect, and we wouldn't have had to cut the programs we cut, and those kind of things. It's just frustrating to really look at how we've slipped in that area.
Well, I know over the years, in years past, Iowa had been going up.
We had.
And it seems in the last few years now it's really been dropping again.
Yeah.
Hopefully the cycle will start the other direction again and go back up again.
Well, and a couple of other things too. You mentioned, some of those other components of the whole funding spectrum earlier in our conversation, but for example, our English language learners, they carry an additional weighting of 0.22 with them, but that's 300% below the national average, and that's just it just really boggles my mind. At-risk funding for Iowa for kids that are they may be at risk of dropping out of school and those kinds of things. That's 77% below the national average.
Yeah.
And we're just not keeping up. And so, our job is to advocate for the kids, and any parents that watch this program, our legislators, our area legislators, they're on board with us. They know what the deal is.
Yep.
But we have to advocate. They need to hear from us, and other legislators need to hear from us too. That the funding for Iowa K-12 schools hasn't been what it needs to be in order for us to keep things going.
Yeah.
Really.
Well, and as far as I'm concerned, of course, I had been in education until I retired.
Maybe a little biased.
Yeah, maybe a little biased, but what better place to put some funding is education.
What an investment in our future.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's what helps me come to work every day, is that's exactly the way I view it. You're really just investing your time in the future, and it's just such a wonderful feeling.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about the factors that have a significant impact on the district?
Well, sure. As we move into our 16 budgeting cycle here, there's some real challenges. First of all, we mentioned the supplemental state aid. We don't know what that amount is. If it's low, that's going to be some real challenges for us in our budget. And we also need to know what our enrollment is, because the foundation formula is pupil-driven, right?
Yep.
And so we welcomed 168 students this year, but over the past 4 years, we've welcomed over 1,000 students to the district. And so there's been a lot of budget pressures that have come to bear, and so that's one of the factors that we're dealing with in our budget right now. And actually, our student needs are changing. I mentioned our English language learners.
Yep.
The last 2 years alone, we've gone from 500 students being served to over 1,100 students being served. And that requires a lot of specialized instruction. It's expensive because you have to buy that expertise. There's over 50 languages represented in the school district now, and it's just an exploding area for us. And those needs exist, and in order for us to do a good job of reaching those students, we have to have those supports in place.
Yeah, I guess because I know some of the teachers, friends of mine that have 5, 6 different languages. That's the student's main language. And so they all need, you know, they need to, if they don't catch up in the English language, they're going to just stay further behind. And
Right.
so that's a very important, yeah.
And we're a people business, as you well know.
Yep.
82% of our budget's wrapped up in people because we take people and we deliver a service, right?
Yep.
Well, our costs go up every year. Health insurance doesn't stay stagnant, as you
Yeah.
well know, in your personal budget. Utilities don't remain stagnant, although we're benefiting a little from the gas going down right now.
This
but
year,
it,
yeah.
it may not
It's
next
not-
year.
You know it's not going to stay there.
And so, you know, all of those things factor into there. And historically, year after year, Mike, we have about a 3 to 3.5% cost increase. And if we only get 1.25% growth, do you see a disconnect there
I kind of
somewhere?
do, yeah. There's, it's really hard to keep up that way.
It is.
Even harder to get ahead.
You can't. So
Yep.
in reality, what we're looking at right now is a pretty stagnant picture when it comes to the things that we're going to be able to do this coming year. We're not going to be able to add or replace or restore staff because at those levels of allowable growth and at 3% cost inflation, we're simply don't have the budget
Yep.
resources to do any of that.
Yeah. Which leads to kind of the next thing, if you can hit on quickly, is everything's tight. New schools.
Yes.
How's this all, you know, happen?
That's always a perennial question from
Yeah.
people. Is that, you know, how can you lay off over here and yet build new schools and remodel over here? And the simple answer is it's all compartmentalized funding. It's categorical funding. I see the cups on the table. Envision this cup over here is the general fund where we pay for all our instructional dollars, and then that cup over there is the save funds where we have all of our building funds.
Yep.
I can't mix the two, and I can't pay for staff out of that cup.
Yep.
And I can't pay for buildings.
Can't put
out
a
of
building
this cup.
out of that cup, yeah.
And so it's compartmentalized, it's categorical. And so we may have dollars to do renovation, but we don't have dollars to hire the teaching staff we need because of the compartmentalization or the categorization of school funding.
Well, and another basic is when it comes down to, because we are adding new schools, we have new high schools shortly too, is you pretty much have to. I mean, otherwise the buildings get way over. I've been in overcrowded buildings.
Absolutely.
Well, you're waiting for the new buildings to get built, and it's not a pretty sight.
Well, those will be factors this year. The budget
Yeah.
strain, you know, we're headed towards opening up Alexander Elementary this year.
Yep.
And it costs about $700,000 to open up an elementary building. Now, the first year we get some of that back through allowable growth, but after that it needs to be absorbed into our budget. And so
Yep.
all of those things need to be planned for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and some of the staff will be staffed in that building, but they're coming from other buildings, so it's
They
not
will.
like
It's
you're
not
having to
all
find
new.
all new money there. But still, because the district is growing, there are going to be new positions
There
no
are.
matter what.
There are. You're absolutely
And
right.
yeah, so that's definitely going to be a factor in there.
Yeah.
Let's see. How about if we look about how far in the future do you plan financially for the district? We only have a couple minutes left here.
Right. Well, for the general fund, we use about a 5-year horizon, and I share quarterly with the board a 5-year rolling projection to update them with the numbers of where we're going. And for our building program, we use a 10-year planning horizon because it takes more time to set that up.
Yep.
And so that's really our planning model, and it's been pretty effective for us.
Well, again, hoping you know what money's.
Well, that's all guessing right now. I wish Des Moines would be just a little bit more forthcoming and help us out there. But yeah, we have to guess on a lot of that.
Yeah,
And
well,
this is what it is.
and again, it's looking at things historically, and you know there's highs and lows. Everything goes, it's a political football, basically.
It is.
And it goes up and down and,
Yeah.
and back and forth, and,
Yeah.
and hopefully they will get things settled
soon.
quickly.
I hope so. I
Yeah.
really do. And that way we can get about the business of making these decisions.
Yeah. So, question arises: if people wanted to learn more about this, what should they do? If they want to follow the budget more, learn about any of this more, what's
Well, there's a set process over the next 3 months that we use. Starting tomorrow night, I'm going to share with the board some budget assumptions, and then we'll come back on February 24th, and we'll talk a little bit more about a draft budget. And then the first board meeting in March, the superintendent makes his recommendation to the board, and that'll have the property tax rate and all that kind of stuff. And then we'll have a public hearing in April for the community to weigh in on and share their thoughts about the certified budget. And then that's certified to the state then in the middle of April, on April 15th. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the process, and people want to be involved with that. I also have information on the website under the business office. I have an FAQ there, and also our budget assumptions and things like that they can follow.
Yeah, well, and I know you're also involved in negotiations, which is all going on now. And,
It is.
And that, because that's all supposed to be settled by a certain time too. And
It is.
again, it all falls back into if things get decided or not at the state level as to how much, you know, I mean, there are so many things that are involved with getting any of that done. It's,
I agree.
you know, some days you want to stay home.
Yes.
Do I have to go to work today?
Yes, well, but you know, we have a great team,
Yeah.
and I love being part of the Iowa City Community School District staff. It's a great supportive community, and we're doing good things for kids. So regardless of how tight our budget is and the things that we have to deal with and these kind of decisions, good education's going on out.
Well, and that's what it all breaks down to, is everybody, you know as well as I know, is that everybody is always working for the same thing here, and that's to do the best they can with the kids and for the kids.
Yep, with the
And so-
resort, within our
Yeah,
resources.
yes,
So,
yeah. So,
Yeah.
well, I wish you best of luck, and hopefully the state can get their act together and get things done and make your job a little easier too along the line.
I hope they do, and it'll be nice if they could get that set for 2 years here pretty quickly, and then we can get about our task of planning and make this all come out without having to scramble in the last few minutes of the
Okay,
year. So.
yeah, well, good, Craig, thanks a lot, and
Thank you.
half hour goes fast, doesn't it?
You know, it really does.
And I'd like to thank you for stopping in and watching another show. Make sure you stop in again, watch us. We're on Channel 18, which is public access television, on Mondays at 7 o'clock. We're on Channel 20, the school district channel. Check your local listings for that. We're also, you can find us on YouTube, just search Education Exchange. You can also find us on PATV, and again, search for Education Exchange. We're in any of those areas, and we hope to see you on the other shows. Thank you very much.